Hey, so, Deltarune tomorrow, Deltarune quite literally, exactly tomorrow, if this video does come out tomorrow, which is today. I am recording this on the 22nd of June. I am not giving myself a lot of time to finish this, am I? However, I decided that for the sake of my soul being at peace, I would release one big compilation of all my theories I've ever had about Deltarune that I put in my 5-page Google Doc of things that I've never made into videos, because I'm lazy, including, but not limited to, much ramblings about Susie and Blood, and also the original KRIS vessel theory, which, yes, I came up with the original theory, I just didn't put it anywhere, post it anywhere, because I'm lazy. I came up with it in, like, January of this year, and then right as I'm like, fine, I finally have the motivation to actually work on a video, this spooky dude releases the KRIS theory, and then I gave up. I gave up on theory videoing. Yeah. But I decided that for the sake of it all, I would at least make this overview of all my theories. Hi, you don't know me. This is my first ever video, but I'm Purple Pippins. This is my Deltarune theories before Chapter 5 releases. Let's get into it. So the first thing I have written in this document is my thinking about Susie bleeding. This is written the day after the new chapters came out, 3 and 4, and that honestly kind of broke my brain. So let's get into it. Susie's bleeding. How? Why? Especially in a set of chapters where we unlock the bookshelf that explains how monster funerals work, i.e. spreading their dust onto an item important to them when they die, in the chapter where the main plot point is that Gerson is in the dark world due to his dust being in a container that we literally see. Susie bleeding here is very important. I still agree with this. I'm still incredibly confused on the Susie bleeding aspect. Why is she? I don't understand. Anyways, Monster asks what it's like to be made out of blood, implying monsters don't have blood at all. But Susie says everyone bleeds, despite the fact that she is a monster and thus doesn't have blood, but she does have blood because she bleeds at the end of Chapter 4. But then, listen, and I know people have talked about this in circles already. It's been a year since the chapter came out. It's been a year since these personal musings. But it still breaks my mind, because we know the monsters still turn to dust when they die, but the reason they turn to dust in Undertale is because they were made out of magic. So they turned into dust because they didn't have internal organs or anything. They were made up of magic, but if they're not made up of magic in Deltarune, because in Deltarune monsters don't have magic, so they bleed, so they have organs and blood, how do they turn to dust? And why does the monster ask what it, like the monster in the apartments, why does he ask what it's like to be made out of blood? Ow, my brain! So, is it a plot hole? Or is Toby playing 5D chess with interdimensional time travel? As you can tell, by the way, this video is highly unscripted. I'm just yapping about my Google Docs. My insane Deltarune ramblings, if you will. Let's see. 2 monsters that we know who've bled. Sans, right. Sans Undertale also bleeds in Undertale. Duh. Susie's blood is for sure not ketchup. Yes, also duh. Basically, along with the place where it rained, that proves Sans is from Deltarune, but we know this already. This has nothing to do with Susie bleeding. The whole Susie bleeding is, what is the dust then? What is the apartment child then? I don't know. Also, side tangent. I'm gonna chapter this out, by the way, the video, because I'm gonna go on side tangents a lot. Side tangent. I totally predicted The Place Where It Rained being a song. Right before Chapter 3 and 4, I wrote 3 theories in my notes app. Papyrus will return. That didn't happen. I'm a fool. Vessel Night, which is, probably not true. And It Rained, or The Place Where It Rained, basically saying that the song It's Raining Somewhere Else will have a version in Deltarune saying that this is the place where it rained. Bingo! I'm a genius. Call me the best Deltarune theorizer of the Chapter 5 era, because maybe I'll do this more. I don't know. So, what is this? Prophecy lists human monster prince and the girl who's most obviously Susie due to her showing her rude buster. What? Is she not the monster from the prophecy due to her being half human and half what? Half human, half monster Susie theory. Oh god. I don't believe that. Thus she serves a different role, being whatever role the girl is. If so, why does Ralsei address Susie as the monster of the prophecy in the first place if he wouldn't have known that she... What? Maybe monsters only bleed in the dark world, maybe, and Susie just didn't react because the prophecy was so distressing. This would imply Undertale is a dark world and everyone is a dead monster brought back by their dust, and Sans is the only one alive, but no, they see the sun, the Undertale, when they leave the underground. It's not like the Under above dark will kill this train of thought. Oh, God. I didn't realize I pondered so much about blood in this. Is Susie half human? Were they right? Who's they? The cabal of Susie half human theorizers, good God. But with us now knowing monsters dust in the same and until Deltarune, thus making Sans bleed, possibly being a sign of even the Deltarune universe, why the hell does Sans bleed? Is it really just fucking ketchup? How would a human have monster human? Whoa. I forgot how insane I went. There's a whole nother page of this still. Lancer talks about joining us into blood, so do Darkners bleed? Uncertain, we've never seen it. This is before Susie joined him to teach him things, so Susie didn't teach Lancer about blood. He came up with it himself. Interesting. Icy talks about his blood boiling for battle, but why does Icy talk about his blood? I think that's because Deltarune monsters have blood. I believe. I mean, obviously, Susie bled, so I think that they just have blood, and they also somehow turn to dust, and that one monster child is just stupid. That's my thought process on this, honestly. Like, modern day. Susie says, blood when eating Hearthstone, not Claudia Red Jam. No else perturbed when you say it's made of blood, but she doesn't notice at first. Susie knows the taste of blood. Susie talks about blood explosion magic. I guess I do like slime and blood. Icy says his blood yearns for battle in chapter 2 as well. Susie recognizes a blood stain on the floor of KRIS's room. Noelle, run, she'll drink your blood. Get closer, she'll drink your blood. Where is this text? Oh, I found this in the dialogue dump. Yeah, I actually genuinely don't know where this is from. I don't know. He's raining somewhere else, and then the place where it rains kind of proves the Sans Undertale Sans from Deltarune right by how? Oh, we're in a different territory. Let's go back to blood. So, okay, a lot of musings about blood, a lot of interesting blood-related things. I, honestly, current day perspective, I don't think it's that important. I'm intrigued and confused, but if it's never explained, I'm fine with it. I think really what it all comes down to is that Deltarune monsters have blood, and they also still do turn to dust, and that just happens. And I don't think kid in apartment building should be crucial Deltarune lore. I don't think random child in an apartment building should be the linchpin to Deltarune lore. I don't think the random child in the apartment building is secretly W.D. Gaster. I think that it's not as big of a deal as it's made out to be. Next theory, Sans Knight. Holy cannoli. Why are the doors in the Dark Worlds the exact same as Sans' door in Undertale? Does he know about the Dark Worlds? Why didn't the church have those doors? Interesting things to say. I don't think the church Dark World had the doors because, I mean, it's not really like as big or expansive as a world. It was more so linear, and it was split into 2 different sections. So I think that's just the reason, because we didn't need to fast travel in chapter 4. Why are they Sans' door? Because it's Gaster's door. Actually, it's Gaster's door, but colored in. Ooh, yes indeedy. That's my thought process. I don't think Sans is the knight. I think Sans being the knight would be, bonkers. Knife Knight. This is a theory that the knight is KRIS's knife because when Tennis said that the knight made the chapter 3 Dark World, it didn't make sense because KRIS made the Dark World, not the knight. Well, KRIS used their knife to make the Dark World, so what if the knight is KRIS's knife, which is why they're like, the black shards are like sharp and like part of weapons, like Noelle's, like Carol, I forgot her name, Carol's katana. I don't know. I don't really believe this because like the knight took Undyne. How is a knife gonna walk? Sans Deltarune's brother is Prunzel. Instead of Papyrus, it's Prunzel. This is a serious theory. No fun happening here. What if Sans, Papyrus, Mystery Man, and Redacted are all shattered fragments of Gaster? This is basically like, what if instead of Gaster being Gaster, when he was shattered across time and space, he was shattered into separate creatures, which is basically Sans, Papyrus, the Mystery Man sprite, and the Redacted sprite in the like test rooms of Undertale that just says Redacted and wingdings and looks all goopy. there's not much else to say there, because this is just conjecture. There's not really any evidence for or other. So Sand's brother in Deltarune is different? Yeah, I don't know. Asgore trapped Des in the bunker. Okay, what is this theory? What is this theory? Oh, I'm excited to read this. Asgore trapped Des in the bunker for the safety of the town and trusted Carol, Alvin, and Undine with the keys to keep it sealed. She falls into the dark world and Asgore orders the bunker sealed so the fountain doesn't spread, and they're trying to find out how to get Des back. Okay, if I am reading this right, basically this theory states that Asgore trapped Des in the bunker because the bunker was sealed because there was a dark world in it. So Asgore knows about the dark world in the bunker. Asgore, Carol, Alvin, and Undine know about the dark world in the bunker, and that's why they sealed the bunker to keep it inside the bunker, the dark world. Even though we know that when doors are open, the dark world doesn't just like... I mean, no, because it leaked out of the crack in the church to make a separate dark world in like the front yard of the front entry room. But I don't know if it would, because like technically also we opened the door to KRIS's house and the dark world was open for a hot second when we ran down to the bunker. But this doesn't make sense. This theory is stupid. The black shard is a shadow crystal. Same symbols in the save menu. Asgore has a shadow crystal. Yeah, okay, so this is around the time when people were like, does Asgore have a shadow crystal? But I think we basically all agree, yeah, duh. I assume. Because, like, yeah, he had, look at this black shard. What is the black shard? The only thing we see referred to as a black shard, the piece of the knight's sword chipped off. That's the black shard. What does the black shard look like? The shadow crystal symbol in the save menu. He has a shadow crystal. Asgore, secret boss. Or at least same service as a secret boss will give us the last shadow crystal in chapter 5. I mean, I feel like that's obvious that Asgore is gonna give us the final shadow crystal in chapter 5 at this point. I don't know. Gaster Knight! Oh my god, Gaster Knight! Wow! What? It is greatly implied that Gaster is giving out the shadow crystals, and the black shard item looks like a shadow crystal that came from the knight's sword, so the sword is made out of shadow crystals. Well, okay. So, the sword being made out of shadow crystals isn't that crazy, but it's heavily implied Gaster is giving out shadow crystals? I mean, maybe? Not really, though, because I feel like this is based off of purely community theorizing, because why do we think Gaster is giving out shadow crystals? Because the shadow crystals are mysterious and spooky, and that they make people lose their minds and go crazy, and who's the mysterious spooky guy who could be giving them out? Gaster. But I don't think there's, like, any evidence that directly, like, wow. I don't think there's, like, any evidence that directly is, like, implying that Gaster is giving out the shadow crystals for sure. Hi, me editing this for the past 11 hours. How the hell did I completely forget about Sean saying that Jevil met a mysterious someone that made his worldview turn darker yet darker, and also Spampton's whole fingers coming from the ends of the phone, a hand that's wait until you're all alone. He pulls the strings and makes them ring until your heart gets ripped out, or whatever. There is evidence. There was evidence of Gaster giving shadow crystals. He's not the knight, though. He's not, don't get me wrong, though. Gaster is definitely not the... It could just be the knight that isn't Gaster gives out the shadow crystals because their sword is made out of shadow crystals. Noelle getting hit by a car theory turning into Asgore hitting Des with his truck is a parallel to the plot of Deltarune and the structure of Dark Worlds. Okay, hear me out. This is literary analysis time. Basically, Dark Worlds take what is inside of a room and reflect it through the lens of darkness, darker than dark, what you see in the shadows of the spaces, hence the poster becoming a monster, the chair becoming another monster, whatever Ralsei said. And basically, Noelle getting hit by a car theory turned into Asgore hitting Des with his truck, because Noelle getting hit by a car theory was a theory, I think, pre-chapter 3 and 4, that was just like a funny kind of meme theory, but it wasn't that much of a meme theory. It's basically like at the end of the weird route, Noelle is gonna get hit by a car, and it's gonna be Asgore. Asgore's gonna hit Noelle with his car to end the weird route of terrible things happening to Noelle. And that was the theory. And it evolved after chapter 3 and 4 to Asgore hitting Des with his truck, which is why she died, because Des got so much more prominent in chapter 3 and 4 that more of the community kind of acknowledged her existence. So she got put into the meme. And how did she die? Why did Asgore get fired from the police force with the thing having to deal with Des? Easy. Asgore hitting someone with his car. Asgore hit Des with his car. And it's kind of like how the things are warped in the perspective of different circumstances, like warping Noelle getting hit by a car to Asgore hitting Des with his truck. Dark Worlds take the original thing seen through darkness, warping it into like a Lancer. Yeah, that was my analysis. It's not really a theory though, so I don't think it really counts as a theory, but I still agree with this. Yeah. Ralsei is KRIS's original soul. Okay. So if we as the soul replaced KRIS, because one thing I was thinking about is that we as the soul take over KRIS. We are the soul, KRIS is KRIS. Where's KRIS's original soul? Because humans have souls, so where did it go? So Ralsei is KRIS's original soul, hence why he looks like Asriel, but like he has the red pink horns, kind of like KRIS's horn headband, because that's who KRIS wanted to be, like their brother Asriel wanted to be a goat monster instead of a human. So that's the interior of KRIS's original soul looks like a younger Asriel, because that's who KRIS wanted to be. That's the theory, really. That's all that there is to it. It's not really much evidence for it. Also, green crayon, green outfit, used up green crayon implies KRIS really likes green. Also kind of a thing, maybe, I don't know. That's the theory, though. It doesn't really have anything to substantiate it. It's just, it could be a cool, thing. Alright, here we are. Like, the main reason I'm making this video in the first place, the whole reason that I wanted to get this out in the world, the original vessel KRIS theory by me. Not going to be as structured or nice as an actual theory video I would have made about it, but I just want to get it out into the world. If you've already seen Spooky Dude's video, it's probably a rehashing, because I don't think that we have entirely unique evidence. Not that I've seen the video, I don't know for sure, but I assume a lot of it's similar. But I just really wanted to get this out there because this is like a theory that really felt like mine when I first made it. Like, it's my theory, it's my vessel KRIS theory, and it was so important to me. And then fucking whatever. Let's get into it. This is also like my train of thought process throughout this whole thing, so I think that'd be fun to go over. KRIS is a goner. Starts with a simple premise. What is KRIS is a goner? Copies are monochrome, but can be colored in with care. KRIS is 7th flying ace. The 7 flying aces, you know, I assume you know, the 7 flying aces, they're world famous. Faint gray glimmering in the crease. Wow. Faint gray glimmering in the crease. You can never wash it all away. The gray in the crease of KRIS's hands. Is that the gray of being a goner, but colored in with care to look like KRIS? KRIS and Des amalgamate into the night. Okay, we'll get there when we get there. We'll get there when we get there. That's a little way into the theory. Hold on. Carol and Goner KRIS are working together to save Des. Hold on. Pause. Let's get back to, let's step on the brakes. Maybe the interruption in the Goner Maker sequence was someone making a copy of KRIS to put KRIS's soul into. Basically, they replaced our vessel. Where do we get the parts with the vessel? Aha. This is where I actually, so originally Goner KRIS was what if KRIS was a goner created by Gaster. So, but then, cage with human soul and parts, a vessel. A cage with a human soul and parts. A vessel for your soul. The prophecy refers to KRIS as a cage with human soul and parts, as a vessel for you. This is what it turns into KRIS vessel. KRIS can function without a soul, but wouldn't that kill a regular human? And also, if us as a soul are a separate entity, what happens to KRIS's original soul? Did they never have one, or as a vessel, are they used to functioning without a soul because goners never originally had one? The whole thing about removing a human soul, killing them, mostly is kind of, we don't know for sure, but in Undertale, we have the human souls in jars, and we know those kids are dead. So it's assumed that without their souls, they're probably gonna die. Maybe, we don't know for sure. Kris could still be a human, take out their soul, walk around. It's not the best evidence, but there's more evidence besides this. And thus, in turn, that's where the, 𝕬𝖓𝖆𝖑𝖞 and KRIS amalgamate into the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 what the hell theory comes from. Which is, you know, the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 and KRIS share similar poses. What if it's not that KRIS is copying 𝕬𝖓, but the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 is a amalgam of 𝕬𝖓 and KRIS, which is why the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 is so goopy and weird, like the amalgamates. Because if we're playing as a vessel KRIS, as a goner KRIS, which is why they were gray in the goner maker sequence, but are colored in now, yet they have the faint gray glimmering in the crease, you can never wash it all away. They are colored in goner version of KRIS, aka the vessel. So where did original KRIS go? Well, we know 𝕬𝖓 and KRIS went into the bunker. What if KRIS never actually emerged from the bunker? What if the KRIS that emerged from the bunker was the goner/vessel KRIS, and 𝕬𝖓 and KRIS in the bunker somehow gooped up into a good ol' amalgamate to make the 𝕬𝖓𝖆, which is why, presumably, the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 leaves the dark world and isn't quite a darkener, because one of the questions is, how did the 𝕬𝖓𝖆, if the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 is 𝕬𝖓, leave the dark world and still be strong enough to carry Undyne back to the bunker? But if it's amalgamates are freaky and weird and also very strong. So what if they're an amalgamate that gooped up and took Undyne to the bunker? So they'd be an amalgamate in the light world as well as the dark world. They'd just be an amalgamate. They'd just be what a freak. Also because because we know amalgamates are white. So what if when they go into the dark world, they turn black? Hence why the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 is black. Because in the light world, they're white and light. In the dark world, they're black and dark. Light and dark. And that's what happens when you're a goopy guy. It's just what happens when you're a silly gooper. Because we know, well, you know, amalgamates are goopy and white in Undertale. But we've never seen them in a dark world. So that's really what my thought process is there. Why are you talking about KRIS in third person? What is this video? Okay, so this is a phone call to KRIS, presumably from the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 or Carol or whoever. Dark Fountain, Susie must not get guitar. We know. Don't let Susie get the guitar because the coach of the bunker in there needs soul. Without soul, KRIS will... You're talking to them! Why are you talking to KRIS in the third person? If you're on a phone call to KRIS without soul, KRIS will. Who are you saying KRIS to with benefit? To who? KRIS that you're talking to? They know you're talking to you. They know that they know that you're the... KRIS knows that they're the one with the soul that will whatever. So why are you talking about KRIS in the third person? Unless without soul, KRIS will. Bunker KRIS amalgam will... I don't know. And then we get to Susie guitar again. So that's the thought process. Why is whoever's on the phone talking to KRIS, but referring to KRIS in the third person when they are talking to them? And this is the "you are always welcome here" in red. I don't think you're talking to the vessel. I think Carol is referring to the soul still in here. I don't think they care very much about... I don't think she cares very much about the vessel KRIS, goner KRIS. I don't really think so. No. Or the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 is just original KRIS somehow twisted. Hence why our KRIS Dark World form is also a 𝕬𝖓𝖆. They also do the same poses because they're both KRIS. This theory is, what if the 𝕬𝖓𝖆 isn't 𝕬𝖓 at all? It's just, instead of 𝕬𝖓 KRIS amalgam, it's just normal KRIS as warped and twisted somehow. And that's basically like, what if it isn't 𝕬𝖓? That's just not really much else to it other than, what if it isn't 𝕬𝖓 and it's just KRIS instead of amalgam 𝕬𝖓 and KRIS? Not much more to say there. Okay, that was basically all I had written for goner KRIS. Goner/vessel KRIS. Let's combine it all. Basically, the theory is that KRIS is the vessel we make in the opening. However, the form and shape of the goner/vessel that we make was decided by someone else, no one can choose who they are in this world, to look like KRIS, to be a goner version of KRIS, because KRIS and 𝕬𝖓𝖆 got trapped and lost in the bunker together, and in order to make sure that KRIS has a, like, role in the story. Okay, I'm not sure why Goner KRIS. Okay, one issue. No idea why Goner/Vessel KRIS exists. Gaster was in the process of giving us a vessel who wouldn't be KRIS, but someone decided that instead we should be the vessel for. Instead, someone else, the second voice, decided that we should inhabit a Goner version of KRIS specifically, take up the role of being KRIS in the story. AKA, not necessarily in the prophecy, because we would still be in the prophecy, even if we didn't vesselize KRIS, because in the prophecy, it's the human soul, the cage with human soul and parts, which could refer to any vessel that isn't KRIS, but we're just a vessel that looks like KRIS and takes up the role of being KRIS. Who decided that? My theory is that it's Carol, for whatever reason, who is using this both to cover up the fact that KRIS is also missing, and as some way to use both her working with the vessel version of KRIS. For some reason, we don't know KRIS's motivations in Deltarune is the problem, so it's hard to think of like why they're working with Carol, because no one really knows why they're working with Carol other than presumably they want Des back, or they want something to do with their guilt in the past, or something to do with like something they have going on that they want help with. We're not quite sure. Trauma, that's the theory. But either way, Carol interrupted the 𝕬𝖆𝖆𝖑𝖐𝖐 sequence to make us vesselize Goner KRIS, the Goner version of KRIS, for some reason, and now we're inhabiting the cage with human soul and parts, the vessel, with the glimmering gray creases that they can never wash it all away, colored in with care as the 7th flying ace. That's the theory. That's basically all there is to it, honestly. It's that KRIS is the vessel created to look like KRIS, the Goner version of KRIS, by Carol, for whatever nefarious plots and plans they want to do. Yeah, that was my original Kressel theory. That's all out there. Maybe it's not quite so eloquent or nice or easy to understand because I talk very fast and I say a lot of words that you probably don't understand unless you're deep in the Deltarune theory space, and it's hard to keep up with what I say, but I apologize. Anyways, that's not the last theory in this document, though. We still have more, such as Dragon Blazer's evil route equals Snowgrave means Snowgrave is in the prophecy because Dragon Blazers is based on the prophecy. Basically, Dragon Blazers is a game that is based off of the prophecy of the Deltarune religion, and in Dragon Blazers there's an evil route. There's an evil route you can play. Which means, what is the evil route in Dragon Blazers based off? Is it still based off of the prophecy? Because if it is, that means that in the prophecy, which we don't know the entirety of, there's like an evil route type of situation. Does that mean that Snowgrave is also in the prophecy? I don't know. We have some interesting little segments here. Let's talk about copies are monochrome. Copies are monochrome, but monochrome could be all blue like water, not necessarily black and white, a reflection of oneself in water. Ralsei is a reflection of Asriel in the water. The prophecy panels are all blue and water-like. Why is KRIS blue? Like water? Like the prophecy panels? KRIS's sprite in the Dark World is a monochrome blue aside from a single splash of magenta. Copies are monochrome. Susie and KRIS are monochrome if you remove the yellow and pink. Too far? I don't think that's too far. Shut up, past me. This theory bangs. This theory goes crazy. What does it mean? Well, I don't know, but this is enough to make someone go flying bananas. Also, I really like the train of thought of a reflection of oneself in water, copies are monochrome. That is interesting. I don't agree with Ralsei being a reflection of Asriel in the water, but there's a lot of water. Prophecy panels are all blue and water-like. KRIS is blue, which has always been strange to me, like water. I don't know. I don't know where to go with this. Not really sure. I can't really think, and I don't really have time to think, but it's an interesting speculation. Roots. Roots is the song for the bunker, lost where the forest would grow. The forest would grow where there are roots. The children don't follow the pointed tail friend into an actual forest, they followed it into the bunker. The place where digital roots and bit roots plays are symbolic of the bunker. That's why friend appears in the Queen's Mansion basement. Friend is in the bunker. Yeah, that's about it. That's about my train of thought. That's about it. Yeah. Also adding on to this, the bunker is literally in an area surrounded by trees, and like if the bunker wasn't there to take up the space where the trees were cut down to make room for it, the forest would grow there. Instead, the bunker's there, but if there was no bunker and it was just land, the forest would probably encroach inwards and grow where the bunker currently is. Ba-ba-da-bop-boop, bam. Last but not least, something that I actually really wanted to make a video on, but I didn't. Ralsei is musically absent from Deltarune. Basically, there's no distinct song that is Ralsei's song. There's no Ralsei leitmotif, there's no Ralsei song. Even when Ralsei has his sad little moment to talk about his life, Lost Girl plays, which is not Ralsei's song. That's Des's song / 𝕬𝖓𝖆𝖑𝖞's song. That's not a Ralsei song. That's not Ralsei's thing. That's not his theme. That's not his leitmotif. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have a single song that represents him. Not one song is for this poor little goat guy. And yeah, that's it for this video, honestly. That's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry if it's very incoherent and rambly. It's not scripted in the slightest, as you could tell. I said this, it's not scripted. I'm just yapping to you about Deltarune before Chapter 5 releases. However, I just really wanted to get this all out there. Maybe get a kickstart on this whole theory channel thing. And I don't know, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understood. I know I talk really fast, and I know that since it wasn't scripted, I ended up talking faster than I probably should because I didn't have something to read and slow down. So I hope I wasn't understandable, and I hope you didn't need to put this video at 1x speed or 0.5 speed. 1x speed is normal. I always put things on 2x speed, but I'm not normal, so either way, I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, thanks for watching. Deltarune tomorrow. Also, as a little addendum, I'd like to go over my funny little bingo board I made, which I know people don't really care about, so that's why it's at the end of the video, after the outro and everything. I just wanted to show it off and explain to you my silly little bingos that I possibly am gonna get. Woo! If, 𝕬𝖆𝖆𝖆𝖶 will stop giving me ads. Oh, 𝕬𝖆𝖆𝖆𝖶, how far they fall. KRIS loses a hand. You all know KRIS loses a hand theory, don't ya? I don't think this video is gonna reach anyone but the most brain-rotted of Deltaruiners. The vessel shows up. Flowey type character. Well, based on the trailer, Death Knight. Of course. A classic. We need that one. Noelle in Dark World. I believe it. Weird Route Part 5, obviously. You know, for the Spamton sweepstakes. She's probably gonna be there. Fun Gang Fallout. This was on my Chapter 3 and 4 bingo board, too. I don't want it to happen, but, you know. Bergen Truck reference. That's not happening. KRIS learns magic. I don't know, maybe. Could be fun. Flower King Dark World. Obviously. Obviously. To be fair, I made this bingo card like a week after Chapter 3 and 4 release, and I haven't updated it much since. It's still kind of funny, though. A goner shows up. A goner shows up. Just one of them. You know? The Roaring. God, wouldn't that be crazy? Woody Theory. God, I love Woody Theory. This is not happening either. Egg is the free space, because obviously. Rules card in another Dark World. I guessed this on my last bingo card for 3 and 4. When I tell you I lost my mind when he showed up, so I'm bringing it back. The classics. Soul gets discovered. That could be crazy. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it would be wild. I feel like that's more of a Chapter 6, 7 type thing. Don't even. Comic Book Darkener, because, you know, he has the comic books on his TV. I feel like that could be cool. Purple Soul Mode. Friend. Rudy dies. I believe it. Even just in the weird route, I believe it. Sans in Dark World. Please, it'd be so funny. Please, it'd be so funny. Oh my god, especially in, like, Asgore's Dark World. Oh, dude is not surviving. Sans after not surviving. What does he become then? What does he turn into afterwards? Blue Soul Mode. Papyrus, finally. Please. Onion comes back. I don't know. Onion might be dead. Onion returns. I hope. Vessel KRIS, obviously, my baby, my beloved. Vessel KRIS, I love you, please. Prophecy Revelation, that's like a free space, honestly. You're probably gonna learn more about the prophecy, but you know, it's there. And that's my bingo card. Don't judge my terrible handwriting, please. What is this? Rules card dating advice. Why did I write that? What does this mean?